So, let's talk about what it really takes to get great at something, to truly master a skill. We're going to have to look past one of the most famous rules out there to find out what actually, truly makes the difference.
You know the one I'm talking about, right? The 10,000-hour rule. The idea that if you just punch the clock long enough, you'll eventually become an expert. But what if I told you that's not the whole story? Not even close. What if there's something way more important than just the sheer volume of time?
Now think about the greatest athletes in the world. A swimmer churning through lap after lap, or a basketball player shooting free throw after free throw. It's not just the mindless repetition that makes them great. No way. The ones who are truly special, the masters, they're the ones who are actively thinking about what they're doing. They're paying attention to every tiny little detail of every single repetition.
And that, right there, brings us to the core idea. The real engine of mastery isn't just time. It's a two-stroke engine of commitment and reflection. Commitment is the easy part to understand. It's just deciding you're going to stick with it. But reflection, man, that's the secret sauce. That's where you actively watch yourself and ask, okay, how could I do that better? Where's the weak spot? It's the difference between just showing up and actually practicing.
Okay, so how do we actually put this into practice? Well, thankfully, there's this really powerful ancient framework for turning all this into real, concrete action. So let's dive in and break it down. These are what are called the 4 bases for success. Look, it starts with desire. You got to have the will to even start. Simple enough. Then comes persistence. That's the energy, the grit to keep going when things get tough. Then, and this one's huge, intent. That's putting all your focus on what you're doing in this very moment. And finally, analysis. That's the reflection part, where you think about what you did and how you can tweak it. You can see how commitment and reflection are just baked right into this whole thing.
And get this, here's an amazing little story that shows just how practical this is. Someone actually saw these 4 principles, desire, persistence, intent, and analysis, painted on a huge sign. And where was it? In the repair room for the Thai Air Force. It was literally their guide for fixing helicopters and planes. I mean, that just goes to show you, these aren't just some lofty, abstract ideas. They are rock-solid, universal principles for getting things done right.
Now, we all know that sticking with anything is hard. There's always this internal battle, right? And here's a fantastic way to think about it. Picture your mind as an inner committee with all these different voices inside your head, each one trying to grab the microphone.
So here's the crucial insight. A lot of us think discipline is about our logical, rational brain just beating our desires into submission. But it's actually way more strategic than that. It's about using one desire to overcome another. You have to cultivate a smarter, more skillful desire, like the desire for long-term happiness, and use that to outmaneuver the easier short-term desires. You're basically getting one member of your inner committee to win the argument against another.
And to make this really hit home, there's this incredibly powerful story. A student who was really struggling with a marijuana habit called his teacher late one night. He was in a tough spot. He admitted he had some, and he was right on the edge of smoking it. But you know, the very fact that he picked up the phone proves something, right? It proves that at least one voice on his inner committee didn't want him to do it.
But when the teacher pointed that out, hey, part of you wants to stop, the student's response was, well, it was chilling. He just said, I've killed that member of the committee. He had actively silenced that better voice inside him. It's just a brutal reminder that we have to be so careful about which of those internal voices we decide to listen to and which ones we decide to starve oxygen. And of course, that brings the question right back to us, doesn't it? When you think about your own goals, your own struggles, which voices are you feeding? The ones that are pushing you toward who you want to be, or the ones that are just pulling you back to the easy way out? We really do have a choice in what we nourish inside our own heads.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together and see how it applies to the most important place of all, right here, right now. Because at the end of the day, the present moment is the only place the real work can ever happen.
You know, you can really see 2 completely different ways of looking at the world. On one hand, you've got these philosophies that basically say everything is fixed, it's all predetermined, so what you do doesn't really matter. You just kind of listen and decide if you agree or disagree. But the approach we're talking about here is the total opposite. It says you have the power. Your actions matter immensely. It's not something you just believe in, it's something you have to test out for yourself.
And this might be the most empowering idea of the whole thing. Your sense of self. Who you think you are, it's not some solid, fixed thing you're stuck with. It's an activity. It's something you are actively doing from moment to moment. The source calls this I-making and my-making. Basically, when a thought or a feeling pops up, You have a choice right then and there whether to grab onto it and make it me and mine.
So what's the whole point of all this mindful practice? What are we building? We're building what's called a mental map. This is what a true master has in their head. It's this deep, intuitive, almost gut-level understanding of their skill. They know all the possibilities, they know the whole process inside and out, and they can feel instantly when something's going right or when it's veering off course.
So, how do you start building that map? Well, here's a brilliant little checklist. Whenever you're practicing and something just feels off, you can run this diagnostic. First, check your breathing. How are you breathing? Then, check the way you're talking to yourself. What's that inner monologue saying? And finally, check the perceptions you're holding in your mind. What are you choosing to focus on? These are the levers you can actually pull to change your experience in the moment.
To explain how easily we get distracted, there's this fantastic sci-fi metaphor. Imagine your mind is like a spaceship, but it doesn't travel using fuel. It travels by instantly changing its frame of reference. So 1 second it's right here, focused on your task, and the next, bam! It shifts its entire frame of reference to some worry about the future, and it's just gone. And in the story, in that tiny little instant of the shift, the people on the ship would actually pass out.
And that metaphor leads to this really cool investigation. That moment your mind slips away, that's your passing out moment. But instead of getting mad about it, you can get curious, what exactly is that moment like? How does it happen? Where does my mind actually go when it wanders off? By investigating this, every single distraction becomes another valuable piece of data for your mental map.
And so we come all the way back around. Mastery isn't about logging 10,000 hours. It's about the quality of those hours. It's about forgetting the obsession with the finish line and instead finding this deep fascination with the tiny little details of what's happening right here, right now. Each moment, each breath, that becomes the entire training ground.
So I want to leave you with this. This is the ultimate takeaway, a question you can ask yourself in any given moment. When some thought or feeling or urge comes bubbling up, you face a choice. Am I going to identify with this, grab onto it, and make it me? Or am I going to see it for what it is, just a passing event, and decide to let it go, to make it not self? That choice, made over and over and over again, that right there is the real path to mastery.